and welcome to What's in My Bag. This is a bag of everyday disruptions against the larger food system and the control and oppression that food can be used to bring. And so this is a bag of different ways of resistance that are small and everyday ways of disrupting that big levels of control. And it begins with this bag itself, which is a tote bag that I got from the nonprofit I worked in high school called the Food Project. And it's of course reusable. Instead of being thrown away, you reuse it again and again. But also the bag itself is symbolic of this organization, which is working to bring together communities all across Boston's North Shore and foster cross-cultural dialogue and have youth farm and teach youth inspiration about farming and get them excited and so much more. But inside of it, so the first method of resistance that I have here are little seeds. And these are resistance against ideas like seed dictatorship, and it's filled with sunflower seeds. And what I really wanted was the pumpkin seeds from this fall, where we carved pumpkins and intentionally took out all of the seeds inside and roasted them. And I think about it in years when I did it when I was a child, and some of the seeds would end up in the compost and new plants would sprout. But of course those all were eaten, and so I have borrowed some of my friend's sunflower seeds, which I think that the same idea, like the intention of taking seeds from the plant that grew in your garden or that you got and saving them intentionally to be eaten, but also to be grown and planted again and again and passing those seeds down. And I think so that also speaks to making do and community. It's number one. Another thing that is about making do is this jar, which is full of a tea towel. And I think, this idea of making do, and I can't really do justice of making do in the way that that they're talking about in the Gaza kitchen. I have never been displaced in that way. But I think the message is really important in just taking what you have and going with it. And I think a tea towel is very symbolic of that, because it's always being used for various things in the kitchen. It's used to wipe hands clean, or it's used to wipe hands when they've got stuff on them. It's used to wipe counters. It's used for touching things that are hot. It can be used for if you have a bag. I mean, if you're trying to present things and you want it to look beautiful, you could wrap things in a tea towel. You could cover rising dough with a tea towel. So it's just about whatever you need it for. The tea towel is there. And this one we made in my elementary school. And again, it's about community, and all the different kids drew a picture of themselves, and it's all here. And then everyone in the school got some. So I think that, again, all of these different ways of resistance are inherently tied together into all these bigger themes. We've got this jar of toothpaste tablets. Here they are. Toothpaste tablets to me are symbolic of the ideas behind vegetarian veganism as an aspiration. And I see the toothpaste tablets there as this idea that it's not, vegetarianism or veganism is not just about what's edible and what you eat. It's a larger practice. It's an aspiration about how you see the world. And when everything is contaminated, what choices do you make, but also what do you continue to make? And so I think it's important that there's all of these different toothpaste tablets for a different day. And so every day, again and again, I have to decide, am I going to use toothpaste that comes out of a bottle, or am I going to use these tablets in this effort to use less plastic? And it's this repeated action. That's why there have to be so many of them. I've got these chunks of an eraser. And this, I think, is symbolic of this idea of decolonizing your diet. A lot of erasers, when you erase, it leaves this smudge behind and kind of a reminder of whatever that was there and you're trying to unwrite and redo. But also when you erase, even if that smudge is left there, you get this new chance to write something new and to start over and to redo. But it's work. That's when it breaks apart and there's all these like shards of eraser that get left behind, and you have to do work to get rid of the pencil. And I think that's what trying to decolonize your diet is. It's in so many different ways in the standard American diet, SAD diet. It's just coming at so many different ways and is so omnipresent in life that it's so much work to try and undo it. But people can do it, and they do, but it's work. Next, we've got a journal. I really loved Walt Kimmer when she was talking about storytelling and writing and gifts and what can you give. And so this is my journal, and usually this writing is just for me, but I think I really love the idea of writing is not just for you, but also that your writing can be a gift for you or for the earth, and that the stories you tell are important and shape you and those around you. And that's incredibly important in how you're perceiving the world. In this jar here, I've got some dried sage, which my aunt gave me to use for smudging. Here it is. Typically that there's this hierarchy and separation between indigenous or traditional or black medicines and practices of healing and Western medicine and science. And this, inspired by Leah Penninim, who also actually worked at the Food Project, is a way to put those in conversation with each other and not just have it be one or the other in this hierarchy, as often happens, but have them work together and both exist. And so sage specifically can be very powerful for healing, and in this form as it was intended is supposed to like purify and cleanse a space, and which is funny in the context of all the conversations about purity we're having, but this idea that plants and dried plants have all this power and that space is important, and that plants themselves can do all this work to help space. The next thing that's in here are clothespins. A lot of clothespins. The clothespins are this, when I was little, I grew up watching my mom put clothes on the line, and it was this very, she would do the wash, and then she would hang all the clothes up on the line to dry. Sometimes people would come over and be like, what? You're putting all these things? And it would be like, your private things, like your underwear, your shirts. You'd see the washing, you'd see the drying, and for everyone and all the neighbors to see. And in the US, those undergarments are so private to people. But you put them on display, and your neighbors get this peek into your inside world. And I think in a lot of ways, a garden is like that, where you put all this individual labor in, and especially traditionally women are doing that labor, and then but people who walk by also are looking in and getting to enjoy the bounty, and especially in my neighborhood, the bounty gets shared. And so I think in that way, putting out your clothes, you're sharing this inside of yourself in the way that when you share your garden, you're also sharing a part of yourself. And additionally, there's this, clothespins are the stabilizing, and I think gardens, especially urban ones, can also be incredibly stabilizing for communities and create spaces to hold on to that tie people together. This is not something from class, but this is a strategy of resistance I'm adding, which is that my friends are always pranking each other with this rubber egg that we put in egg cartons, and it's this constant prank where you take it out and you're like, oh, it's the rubber egg. And so I want to add that humor as a way of disrupting a larger system and finding humor in things and finding joy and laughter with other people and by yourself, in that like secret smile when you put it in the carton, but also when I'm alone in the morning cooking and I find it and I smile to myself. And so that's my extra strategy that I'm adding in, is humor. And the last jar isn't full of anything. And that's because this is about what are the things that I'm taking with me and using every day. But I think that there are lots of things we learned about, some of which are not right for me right now. Like, I tried to get things out of the trash, but I just couldn't do it. I had a really hard time with it. But maybe one day that strategy will be right for me. But also I want to keep myself open to other strategies that come along and other things I may learn. And so this jar is symbolic of more learning and a continued learning and willingness to be open to looking into other forms of resistance. And so this has been what's in my bag of everyday disruptions and resistance. Thank you for watching.